One of the things I found most disappointing about SNK's release of the Neo Geo Mini was the controller. Specifically, the reissue of this once great CD Gamepad was now hitting shelves, minus the one awesome thing that set it apart from the other controllers at the time. It's a click. But we live in a time where fans and hobbyists correct the wrongs of commercially produced products. Now, I've raved about the original Neo Geo CD Gamepad in the past. It's probably one of my favorite controllers, and not just because it's Neo Geo related, but because of several key features. The first is its overall size. It just fits far more comfortably in my hands than most smaller controllers of the era. To go along with that larger size comes larger buttons, which I also really appreciate far more than the smaller ones found in its competitors at the time. And well, don't even get me started on modern day Joy-Cons. But the final and most prominent feature of these controllers was that they included microswitches for the thumbstick. This is by far my favorite attribute of the controller and likens it to AES and other arcade sticks, giving you that positive click of reassurance while making your way through a game. But this precision was left out of the newly released version of the Neo Geo Mini Pads in favor of a somewhat wide and lifeless rolling stick. The famous response from SNK to Metal Rock Jesus on the subject was, of course, clicky thumbsticks is very hard to make. Are they though? Because a one-man operation named Magic Trashman on Twitter figured it out. He also replaced the USB with a DB15 connector so the mini controller can be used on original hardware. I missed out on the first batch of these, but recently he began offering the controllers again on Twitter, so I grabbed a white one this time around to test drive and see how it compares. Mine didn't come with the original box, so if that's important to you, then you may want to ask if you can have that included. The first thing I saw upon opening this then was that the dot on the stick that is normally positioned on the top was now to the right. Is that a big deal? No, but I did notice it, and when I removed the stick, I found that it can only fit on the controller with the dot to the right or to the left. Again, it's not a huge deal unless you're really tied to that bump for recognizing where your thumb is on the stick. The Mini's button layout is also unchanged here, so if you're a fan of the new scheme, you can now use an official controller with it on original hardware. I mean, you're wrong, and that's blasphemy, but if you like that sort of terrible thing, well, this is for you. You'll remember from my Neo Geo Mini review that I mentioned how you really have a lot of room to push this stick around. In the arcade world, this is often referred to as throw distance, and like the button layout I just mentioned, this is highly subjective. Some people really like longer throw distances, and others don't. Now, I fall into the latter camp, and unfortunately for me, this mod doesn't shorten the throw distance. I do want to be clear here, this isn't a fault or something that should even necessarily be corrected by the mod. I'm just calling out that the stick throw distance remains identical to the original with this mod. I'll do my best here to try and demonstrate the original CD pad versus the modded mini pad. You can see and hopefully hear when the original clicks and then stops on the black original, as opposed to that click and then ongoing movement past the point of the click for the modded controller. As you can see, the original is just a lot tighter and has less range of motion as opposed to our modded mini, which you have a lot more movement with. In very general terms, most people who like longer throw distances like it for fighting games because there is more allowance for errors when executing special moves. And that's really good news because most of you are well aware that the Neo Geo is loaded with solid 2D fighting games. The people who don't like a lot of movement and want quick, precise snap controls like me, those are typically your shooter fans. It's not to say you can't play shooters with a longer throw or fighters with a short one either. Again, I'm just kind of speaking in very general terms here. I was able to get some time in with a few games with the modded controller, and I found that after a brief adjustment period, I was, for the most part, okay using it. And you can probably tell by that statement and what I mentioned about my personal preferences around throw distance that I still prefer the original CD Gamepad. And that's not a knock on the mod at all, however, and I think that this is some really awesome work by Magic Trash Man to even make this thing a reality. The clicks all feel very natural and have proper placement. Nothing about their implementation screams amateur hour here. This is a job really well done and an overall improvement of the Neo Geo Mini Controller. These do cost $65, which includes shipping, and that puts them pretty much in line with what you can expect to pay for an original CD controller. Since there are no real cost savings here, my thoughts can be summarized very simply. If you want the tighter feeling, then go with the original pad. If you want the looser feeling, then Magic Trash Man is your guy. Maybe you want one of each and you can then flip back and forth depending on the type of game. I mean, options are never a bad thing to have. But that's really it for this cool mod. I'll try to answer any additional questions you guys might have in the comments down below. Don't forget to give a thumbs up if you would be so kind, and subscribe so you can stick around for more Neo Geo related videos. That's all the time I have for today, guys. Until next time, later guys.